Welcome to Integrity Inspire, your daily dose of inspiration and motivation, featuring the bright and talented members of the Integrity Marketing Group family. Now, here's your host, Integrity co-founder and CEO, Brian W. Adams.
Well, hey, everybody. This is Brian Adams. Thank you so much for joining today's Inspire podcast. We're so excited. Well, today we've got a really special guest. In fact, this special guest has had two successful careers, one on the baseball diamond, which was unfortunately cut short, and one in the insurance business, which continues to grow and thrive today. Frank DeJiulio is the founder and CEO of ASB Financial, and he's just built an incredible team that recently became part of the Integrity family. ASB Financial is a leading financial provider of Medicare and retirement services and planning services, headquartered in Tampa, Florida, and has 9 regional offices of just some of the most dedicated and impressive team members that you can ever find. Frank has a strong reputation in the industry for his skill of developing agents and really helping them have a career in the insurance business. And he develops and spends and invests a lot of time and energy in helping others succeed. And his sales techniques and training and recruiting programs have been used as examples for other offices all across the country. But what really impresses me the most about Frank is how much he loves and cares about his family. He's a guy who really has his personal priorities in the right place. And I'm thrilled to have Frank and Terry and the entire DeJiulio family as part of the Integrity family. And I'm honored to have him join us today on the Inspire podcast. Frank, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us on today's podcast. We were so excited to be inspired by you and your story, my friend.
Well, thank you, Brian, and I'm happy to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity. And let's go. I'm ready.
Yeah. Well, hey, so I love your story. You grew up in New York. Tell us a little bit about your childhood. Before I can't wait to hear more about the baseball aspect of it. I know that we've got a lot of sports guys and gals on the phone that want to hear about it as well. But tell us just a little bit about your childhood and kind of where you came from.
Sure. I'm from upstate New York, just outside of the Albany area. And where I grew up, we grew up in an Italian community. And there's a little town where I didn't realize it till years later that we're all related to each other. We're all cousins and aunts and uncles, and the kids I went to school with. We're all related. I didn't find that out till later in life. But my mom, in the first hand, came from Rome, Italy. She had come over when she was 17 years old, and her mother died young, and she did not go to school because she had to take care of her siblings, which is a brother and a sister, and she was raised by her aunt. It was almost like a Cinderella type of story. And my dad was born here, but his mother and father came from Rome, Italy as well. And the little town we grew up in was incredible. I mean, my dad made wine out of the garage. I remember the truck pulling up with crates of grapes on it, where my brother and I would have to tote those grapes up the driveway into the garage. And my father would be turning the old wine press the old-fashioned way. And my brother and I it was grape juice before it became wine, obviously. And my brother and I would just go in there until it became wine and just drink that grape juice. It was so good. And my mom was the typical Italian mother. It was all about the family, a great cook. She could cook anything, and she was good. She was good with anything. We had a garden that felt like the size of a football field, and it had every kind of vegetable you could think of. And that's how we ate. We hardly ever went to a restaurant because my mom always felt that she could cook better than the cook or the chef in that restaurant. So We kind of kept her out of there. Well, she could, but it kind of was embarrassing at sometimes because she'd walk back into the kitchen and tell them how to cook it right. So we kind of kept her away from the restaurants. And it was really truly amazing what she could do. And my grandmother, who taught my mother how to cook, basically, was the best. I'll tell you a little story. When my brother and I were growing up, and we were 8 years old, we would go on. She would take us on the bus and go into the country, as she called it, with a burlap sack, and we'd go to a farm and we would buy chickens live, and we would come back with chickens in that burlap sack in between my legs on the bus, and they'd be kicking and balking around until we got home. And once we got home, we would take those chickens down in the cellar, and I would have to hold that chicken over the sink while my grandmother, had to slice his throat, so to speak. And we had boiling water in a pot, just waiting for that chicken. Then we would put the chicken in the boiling water and pluck the feathers. And that was what we had that night for chicken soup.
Wow.
And in that chicken soup, my grandmother I would have chicken's feet in it. And we would just gnaw on the chicken's feet. That was like a little delicacy that many people know about.
That was a treat, huh?
It was a treat, and it was really good too. And one of the times, one of those chickens, when the feathers were plucked off, you heard of that saying, you run around like a chicken with your head cut off? Well, that's the truth. This one chicken jumped off the sink, started running around the cellar, and me and my brother are running to catch it. It's just the funniest thing you ever saw. So,
man,
that's my grandmother.
That had to be a sight to see, man.
This is old, yeah, Brian, it's old country stuff. And the other thing that my grandmother did was she lived in the second floor flat, and she had a window overlooking the yard in the second floor. And she would have us go down with a box trap and put an apple in it and wait for black crows. And we had the string into the window, from the window to the yard. And when those black crows went to take a bite of that apple, I would pull the string and we would catch those crows. And guess what went into the spaghetti sauce that night was crows.
No way. Are you for real?
Absolutely. And it was good too. You would never know it. You would never know.
Oh my God.
My grandmother cooked everything and anything from the ground up. So
wow.
you couldn't have a rabbit in your yard. You got to be careful because you might have grabbed that rabbit too. So,
man, I tell you what, just having back then, I mean, they just had to do whatever they could, right? I mean, they just had to do whatever you could to get by, and it's amazing to hear those stories.
Absolutely,
man, for sure.
Even snails, we would eat snails, and
that's a delicacy in France, right? That's go.
Yeah, absolutely. So the night before, my mom would put them in the pot, put the screen over it, and in the morning she'd be yelling us to get down here. We went down into the kitchen, and all these snails had pushed the screen off, and they're crawling up the side and on the ceiling. And my brother and I had to go up there and knock them off and pick them off. And it was really good. It was a really interesting childhood.
That sounds like an interesting childhood. Well, you didn't start out in the insurance business. In fact, you grew up playing baseball, and you were a pretty exceptional baseball player. In fact, you became a professional baseball player. Tell us a little bit about how you got into baseball and kind of your professional career.
Well, I've got we have 5 boys in my family, and I am the youngest, and I'm a twin. And my twin's a Catholic priest. And we were, I don't want to say we were a mistake, but we were 10 years younger than my next oldest brother.
Surprise.
And it was interesting. Yeah. And we grew up, all my brothers were good athletes. Me and my twin brother. But baseball was always my passion. And I spent a lot of time playing and working on my game, focusing on just the little details. So much that I don't know if you ever watched a baseball game. You see the pitcher throw the ball back to the umpire throw him another ball, and he would take the ball and throw it back. Did you ever see? Well, there's a reason for that sometimes, because I played so much baseball. When you threw me a ball when I was pitching, I could tell if it was out of round. The normal person couldn't tell by feeling it, but I could feel if it was out of round. And a lot of balls are shaped differently. And I would keep one game, I must have threw the ball back 8 times. And the umpire comes out and says, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "None of those balls are round." So he threw them all later. He took them out of the game and got me 8 more, and he brought them out to me. He goes, "Pick one." So I picked one. So they do get out of round. So that's how much baseball that I have played. And I was fortunate to be able to sign on with the Cincinnati Reds organization. I played Little League, from Little League to Babe Ruth to college, and I got fortunate. Upstate New York back at the time, not many baseball players come out of there. They always come out of the South. But that was a very exciting time for me. I'll never forget it. And at one point, I was rubbing elbows with some of the great people in the game, like Pete Rose, Johnny Bench, Joe Morgan, Tom Seaver. As you remember back then, that was Big Red Machine, But I started like most people in the minor leagues. And it was the best time of my life. The bus travel, we must have traveled 8 to 12-hour bus trips, eat at the Waffle House. That's just a great time you'll never forget. And just the camaraderie and the fraternal organization that you have. I'm always I love team. I love people. I love to help. And I got to play in 4 great cities. I started in the New York Penn League, which is the New York League. I went from there to Eugene, Oregon, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and Tampa, Florida. And in 1979, actually, some of the highlights, I led the Northwest League in strikeouts and was selected MVP of the minor leagues. And they flew me to Riverfront Stadium and in front of 52,000 people one game at home plate, and they awarded me a trophy, and I spent a little time up there with them. That's how I got to know and just meet a lot of major league players. And the following year after that, I made the All-Star team, and then I was selected as a major league prospect. And one of the games, nothing ever fazed me. I think it was because of my dad and my mom. My mom was very mentally tough, and my dad was always even-keeled. My dad, I always think back to them. My dad was in World War II. He fought in the Battle of the Bulge, and he would always watch these war movies. And you never can tell. He never got too high, never got too low. And he would tell me, he would never talk about himself. And as I got older, I said, "Dad, just tell me a story here or there." And he would tell me a few that really, really amazed me. Like one in particular, he was with the Big Red One. That was his battalion. I think they're the first ones that went into battle. That's what they called Big Red One. And he said they went out with 47 or 46 guys or soldiers, and only 7 came back, and he was one of the 7. Yeah. And and that was a time, back then that it was in Germany and France for 3 years. He got a Purple Heart, and he told a few other stories. But if it wasn't if he'd have gotten killed or anything, I wouldn't even be here, because I didn't come until, for Pete's sake, 15 years later. It seemed like, So it's just the mental toughness that he had, and my mom, that really moved me through sports and baseball, because nothing ever fazed me. I just focused. And my mom always told me, you're the best. Nobody can ever be better than you. Always remember that. And I never forgot that. It was just ringing my mind all of the time. And, baseball was a huge thing for me, and I loved it. And everything was going like I had hoped. But then one day, I was pitching Gary Gaetti at the plate, and I struck him out. I came in with 2 men on base with 2 outs. And I know Gary Gaetti. I don't know if anybody remembers him way back when, but he was a good fastball hitter, and I knew what he couldn't hit. So I threw him 3 sliders that he swung on and missed, and I was very fortunate to get him out, because he's a Hall of Famer to this day. So the next inning, I get up to bat, and we're in the National League. And in the National League, pitchers hit. And I was actually signed as a third baseman as well as a pitcher. But the scout had mentioned to me, he said, "You're better off going as a pitcher because you can move quicker, and they're looking for pitchers. If you're as an infielder, there's a lot of those, and it might be just a little longer, a little tougher time getting there." So I went as a pitcher. But the biggest thing, I threw righty and batted lefty, and I could hit. So when I get up to bat, usually when a pitcher sees a pitcher get up to bat, they throw, waist-high fastballs, and just get them out of the way. Don't mess with them. And this guy that was pitching against me, I'll never forget. He's throwing heat. He was throwing that ball 95, 96 miles an hour. And I said, okay. I said, he better not see me swing a few times because he'll know that I can swing, I can hit the ball. So he threw his first pitch right down the plate, right down the middle, and I just ripped it over the second baseman's head. And I got a base hit. I was on first base. I remember this like it was yesterday. Put my pitching jacket on. I'm on first base. The next guy hits the ball into the corner. I'm rounding second, and I see my coach laying on the ground, which means slide. I shouldn't have probably stretched it. But Gary Gaetti was covering the bag, same guy I struck out, and he's just a big, stocky guy. And I said, I'm not going through him. So I tried to do to make a hook slide. And pitchers we're not very good at sliding. All right, we don't practice sliding, and I didn't do very well. So I landed on my arm, my hand, and I dislocated my shoulder right there. And all I remember is Gary Gaetti hitting me in the back, and the umpire yelling safe. And Gary Gaetti thought I'm there just in pain. And then I tried to come back the next inning, and I couldn't do it. It wouldn't work. Back then when you have a shoulder injury, they operate on you. And when you get operated on, it's never the same. It's not like today where you can get arthroscopic procedure done and rehab and come back. It just doesn't work. So basically, I tried to come back the next year, and I was moving up every year. They flew me to Riverfront when I was MVP because they wanted me to be a major league prospect, but they kept moving me up one step at a time, and my next move would have been AA, AAA, but I couldn't make it. I had to come back. I just had to tell them that I can't pitch any longer because my arm – I tried to come back the following year. I pitched 100 innings. But I was taking so many aspirin that it's just Tylenol and all that kind of good stuff that for a 21-year-old kid going through that now, it's just not good.
Man.
And it was discouraging. And it's the biggest thing about that is only thing I knew was baseball. And now that it was over, I had nothing to fall back on. So it was pretty discouraging for me.
Yeah, man, that had to be just heartbreaking. You were so close, and and just that split second change that. It's amazing to hear those type of stories, and you think about it's human nature to think, what if, right? What if we had been able to get through that? But and I know that had to be incredibly difficult. And you put everything you had toward achieving your baseball dreams, and it was right there in front of you. And then you're faced with this adversity. And one of the things that I'm amazed by is how many people have come through that adversity and they turn that energy into something else that creates a different path that is arguably even more successful than what your original dreams were. And I don't know if God has a plan on those type of things, that it says we got a bigger purpose, or what that route is, or how that works. But you were able to take that adversity, what you had gone through, and get into the insurance business. How did you get into the insurance business?
It's kind of funny how people cross your paths in your life, and you got to really listen and look. You don't need to get hit in the head with a 2x4 to figure some things out. But it was a tough time, and all of my life I did nothing but baseball. And then I said to myself, "What am I going to do now?" And My wife, Terry, was a huge source of support for me. I mean, I really could not have done it without her. We dated in high school. We're high school sweethearts, basically. And high school together, college together, and we got married. She was only 20 years old, and I was 22. And I remember her father, his name was Chad. He said to me, he goes, "What are you going to do to support my daughter?" I said, "Baseball. Other than that, I really don't know." And he kind of walked away. I don't think that was too good for me. So my wife was a dental hygienist, and I mean by she was a big source of support. I think support in any career is huge. And she was a dental hygienist, and back in the late 80s, she did pretty well. She allowed me to explore all my options. You know, I tried everything. I worked for Pepsi Cola. I worked for UPS. I delivered furniture, pest control, you name it, I did it. And we had one car. It was a 1973 yellow Volkswagen and a 10-speed bike. And what she would do for me was I needed to go find a job. And when I did try one of these positions, I had to be there at a certain time early, especially with Pepsi Cola at 4 o'clock in the morning, because you had to deliver Pepsi and you had to go through all the stores. So I would take the VW Bug, and she would be dressed up in her white outfit, her dental hygienist outfit, and she'd have to strap her right leg with a bungee so it doesn't get, it doesn't get greased up in the spokes. And she would ride the bike 3 miles to her work. 3 miles. And then at night, I'd pick her up. I'd go to her office when I got off, and that was like 6 o'clock at night sometimes. I'd go to where her office was. I would take the bike, and she would drive the car home because it was getting dark. That happened for a period of time. That happened time in, time again, and time again. And she would do anything. And I went back to college, and the funny part about that was I wanted to figure out what I wanted to do. So I went there and took my courses, and I took a career profile test. I'll never forget that. Went to the business office. I took this career profile test, and it came back. It spit out sales, and I crumpled it up. I threw it in the waste paper can. I did it again. Came back sales. Did it 3 times. I said, this thing doesn't know what it's talking about, and it comes back sales all 3 times. It was truly, truly amazing. There's a lot of hurdles in my life too that I had to jump over, and I love the challenge. Athletes I just always love the challenge. We fall down, we get back up, and you got to keep going. Someone told me fall down 7, get back up 8. And the insurance industry, it felt like my baseball career in many ways. The work ethic part, the competitiveness. You think you're good? Well, there's always somebody better than you, obviously. And I always had a desire to be the best that I could. And I had the discipline for that, just from baseball, just from my family to baseball. And none of us ever fall on top of the world. I tell my people that all the time. Nobody falls on top of the world. And we all start at the bottom. And that's how I get into the business. Kind of funny situation. So when I was in Tampa with my wife, and I had to get out of Tampa because that's where spring training was, I said, too many familiar surroundings, so we need to move. So we moved to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where her parents and her sister lived. So I lived on the East Coast, South Florida. And one day, Terry and I went to play tennis. And after about an hour, this guy shows up and just sits on the bench, looking like he's waiting for somebody with his tennis gear. So after an hour, my wife says, she calls me over. She goes, why don't you go ask him if he wants to play? So I walk over and said, are you looking for someone? He goes, yeah, I'm waiting for a friend to show up. I said, well, you want to volley around, want to hit around until he comes? So we must have hit it around for at least an hour. His friend never even showed up. Didn't even show up at the court. So we played for another hour and a half. And afterward, we talked, and he asked me what I did, and I just told him my story. I asked him what he did. He was in the insurance business. He says, you know what? He goes, you're a pretty competitive guy. I said, yeah, I try to be. I don't like to lose, that's for sure. And And he said, "I want you to call this guy." He gives me this guy's phone number, my manager's phone number. Just give him a call and tell him I sent you. So I made the call, and I walk in, and then he made the appointment with me. I walk in, another hurdle. And we had to take, and when I walked in after he interviewed me, I said, "You know what? I like this. This seems like baseball to me. It's competitive. It's challenging. You can call your own shots once you get rolling. No one can tell you how good you can be. No one can stop you." So I loved it. It just had every attribute that baseball had. But there's one thing that another hurdle for me was we had what's called a CPQ. It was a career profile questionnaire. And back in the day, you had to take this career profile questionnaire to see if you were geared up or the right person for the insurance industry. And what that was it wasn't a aptitude test of any type. It was to see if you own life insurance, if you got money in the bank, if you're making a good income, all the things that they thought, well, still some of that is true, that if you have and you believe in and you're set, that you could be in the insurance business. So I didn't have any of that. I answered no to life insurance. I wasn't making any money. I had no bank account. So it was like strike three, no pun intended. It was like strike three. And 4 weeks went by, and I called the manager up, and I said, "Hey, what happened?" I said, "I took that questionnaire 4 weeks ago." He goes, "Well, I thought you got the hint. You didn't pass it." I said, "What do you mean I didn't pass it?" You didn't answer it properly, and you just didn't pass it. I said, "Now what do I have to do now?" Because I really wanted to do this. Because let me tell you something: getting in the insurance business, you get in it out of desperation or inspiration. And initially, I was desperate to get into that, and then as time went on, I was so inspired by it. So, wow. That being said, he said, "You got to come back. The company won't allow anyone to retake this questionnaire for 6 months." I said, "You're kidding me." I said, "I have to come back in 6 months and retake that?" I said, "Give me a date." So he gives me a date, 6 months to the day. I walk in that office, and here I am. He goes, "You're kidding." I said, "No, here I am." He goes, "Sit down." So he kind of coached me this time. And so I answered it properly. And I passed. And I passed. Well, to this day, they don't have that any longer. But back in the day, you had to be a certain person, have certain things to even be what they were looking for. So, and I really threw myself into that career. I didn't like it. I didn't understand it. It was a desperation thing, but I loved everything about it. There's the startup, the challenge, everything I just said before. And my first 7 months, I made the convention to Hawaii. I had a year-long convention. I made it in 7 months. And my wife and I, from upstate New York, there's 2 kids, were on our way to Hawaii. And that, talk about inspire. I met so many people. Wow. And then I was an agent for 3 years or so. I was a field trainer for 2. And then a branch manager, regional manager, and an owner for the next 30 years. And I was a good agent, but my true calling was developing people. I love to develop people, and I love to recruit. And my drive and discipline helped me become successful at it, for sure. And I was mentored by 4 great mentors. I basically started over 4 times from the ground up. From my number 1 insurance company. Then number 2, the number 1 insurance company that I came from was all about Medicare and long-term care. The guy that owned the first company and my second company, the vice president, were brothers. And he always liked me. He always wanted me. He always wanted to steal me from his brother, basically. And my manager at the time saw me starting to grow and kind of hitting my head against the ceiling because I needed more. So we became good friends, and he kind of let his brother take me. And his brother, to this day, whenever I see him, I still don't understand why. I don't still understand why my brother let you go. The reason he let me go because he knew I wanted more. I'll be honest with you. I learned how to recruit better. I learned life insurance, and I learned annuities. And that's all I needed to have, because as today's go, that's what I do. I get in with Medicare, Advantage plans, but we go right through the gamut. We go to life insurance and right to annuities, 401ks and IRAs. We help people. And then my third time, I came back, and that's where I met Clay. Because my first was the first life insurance company. Believe it or not, the office I went to was number 18 out of 22 in the region. And when they brought me there, I said, look, I don't know anything about life insurance or annuities, but he loved my drive. He loved my discipline, my energy. He goes, I'm going to teach you a few things. And he spent 3 months teaching me about life insurance, presentations. He said, you do this one presentation, you teach this one presentation alone, you go a long way. And that year, I recruited over 100 people, developed them, and we went from number 18 out of 22 to number 2 in the region. And I spent 4 or 5 years with them. And then one day, I would always go back and visit my old manager, and that's where I saw Clay, met Clay, and we hit it off pretty good. And he's always been a really good friend, and we just, like I said, we hit it off tremendously. And he said, hey, if you ever want to come back, give me a call. I said, yeah, I'd love to talk to you. So I called him, and he comes over to pick me up. And I said, where are we going? He goes, I don't know. We're just going to drive around. So my interview with Clay was in the car. We didn't go anywhere. We just drove around. Said, where are we going? He goes, I don't know. We're just going to drive around. So we drove around for 2.5 hours. Typical Clay, and I loved it.
That is typical. I love Clay. Clay. That is, but he's just so natural, right? I mean, just genuine. He's one of the most natural and genuine people that you can ever find. When you were talking, I mean, you've overcome a lot of obstacles, and I love the fact that when life throws you a curveball, man, you just are able to just stay at the plate, man, and keep swinging. You talked about your dad being in the Big Red One and all of that. Did his discipline and kind of that experience, and how did he bring that home to you guys?
I don't know if it's go ahead. I don't know if it's DNA. I don't know what it is, but I've got a little bit. My mom was a tough woman. My gosh, was she strong-headed. And my brothers and I would always joke about it, saying that she had any education, she'd be a good trial lawyer, because she was just so strong, and she believed what she believed. And you believed it if she believed it, because she made you believe it. It just happened, just like osmosis type of thing. And my dad was an inner strength. You talk about people having issues after war and coming back. I don't know if he did or not. I didn't think so, but you would never know it because he never showed it. He kept things inside, but he had the strength and the will. And my mom was a tough one. She was the family leader, but don't let my dad get angry about anything, because then you wouldn't want to poke that bear for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you talk about the Big Red One. It's a legendary unit, right? And my sister in college, her roommate was this girl named Ellen House, and just one of the sweetest girls ever. But her dad was the general overseeing Big Red One in the Gulf War. And
wow!
I remember getting to spend some time with the General House, and hearing the stories, and one of the most profound stories that I really, he's the biggest military commander I've ever met, and hearing him tell some of the stories about being there in the trenches with your team, and how he refused to take a shower unless his men were able to take a shower. And he refused to go out and sleep and any other thing other than where his men were sleeping. And just being kind of in the trenches with the men, and just that just that, like, they need to know that I am here with them. And part of what he was telling me was that's kind of part of the ethos of the Big Red One, is that was kind of a lot of what was kind of handed down through a lot of the commanders through that. And I say all that because you're one of those guys that is not afraid of rolling up your sleeves. You grab a hold of agents and you develop them. You invest in them, and you're not gonna. It's just like General House wouldn't shower unless his men were able to shower.
Yeah,
you're one of those guys, and Clay Legent's one of those guys. And Jim Sweeney,
absolutely,
one of those guys where it's like, I am in the trenches with you. I'm going to be here with you. Whatever you need, we're going to get through this together, and we're going to be successful in this mission. And man, that's inspiring to me. And so it was ironic when you were talking about that story about your dad and that strong inner strength that you have, but also that strong personality that your mom gave you as well is such a compliment. And so, you know, we couldn't be more proud to be your partner here at Integrity. What was it about our partnership that intrigued you the most? Say, listen, because you've had just an incredible business, and you're growing incredibly fast. What was it that attracted you to say, now's a good time for us to join forces and accomplish something bigger?
Well, you know, it's a funny thing. I just felt right. Everything that I went through with you guys, and from the interview to now, everything is just right. It's like you're like a big brother. You know, I was a bigger fish in the smaller pond that I was in. Now I'm with Integrity. I'm a smaller fish in a big pond, but that's where I want to be. Because, you know, these small fish become bigger fish, obviously. Being part of Integrity is like having a brother, you know, like my brothers. I can interact and learn from so many great people. Like one of them in particular is Allentown. It's funny how I met him. I met him a few times. The first time I was on a phone call when American Senior Benefits first joined Integrity or partnered with Integrity. And I heard he was in the senior life business, and I wanted to learn more about that because we're into that as well. And I like to pick people's brains. And we must have talked for an hour. And you think that he knew me for 10 years, the way he treated me. He's just a terrific, terrific guy. And I always, if you're having a bad day, just give him a call. He'll make you feel better, for sure.
For sure.
And second time I met him was I took my boat to Sarasota with my wife. At Marina Jack, and I was looking for office space to open up a new office in that area. And I had put my boat in the slip, and I'm walking down the walkway, and I see this boat with the Integrity flag on it. And I stopped as soon as I saw the Integrity flag, and as I stopped, he comes walking out his door. And I said, "Hey, man," I said, "that's Integrity." I said, "I'm with Integrity." He goes, "So am I." And I said, "I'm Frank DeJiulio." He goes, "Frank, I just listened to your introduction today." And I said, he goes, "I'm Allentown." I said, "You're Allentown." So we must have stood. My wife, I left her in a restaurant for about an hour and a half. She didn't know where I went. And he and I just talked and talked and talked and talked. And we just couldn't get enough of each other. And then all my family came in that day to see me with our boat. And he's the most gracious person, one of the most gracious people I've ever met. So
yeah, he is a great guy for sure. We got a lot of great partners. He's one of the best for sure.
And I can't wait to meet the rest of them because if they're anything like him, oh my goodness. But you know, I'm so excited about ideas from other partners too. I love to share ideas. I love to grow. You know, I've already made some changes based on things that I've heard and things that I've seen. You know, I like thinking out of the box. That's me. You can't grow. You know, Clay says one thing that always resonates with me. He says, no such thing as idle. Either moving up or you're moving back. And I so agree with that. And the people in this organization are terrific. It just blows me away that all of this incredible talent's on one team. And, you know, when you call someone, I've talked, I mean, people have reached out to me, and if they know you're an integrity partner, oh my God, it's almost like an old lost friend. They just greet you and they take you in, and they can't do enough for you. And what I couldn't achieve with the big red machine, so to speak, I definitely will achieve with the big blue machine. For me, integrity definitely. I love that too. I know. For me, integrity is definitely my major leagues. This is my new major leagues. And you know, as far as legacy, I think of that. The timing of this partnership is perfect. Where I'm at in my life right now, not just for my children or my grandkids, but for the people in my company, especially my managers and my employees, the growth opportunities that integrity offers, including ownership, and they're so excited about it. I had one individual come back to me just last week when he found out and he saw my video that he had left me. You know, people do that. They go, they want to kind of find their own way, and he had saw my video and found out that we were partnering with integrity. He came back. He came back to my office and said, "I want to be a part of this." It's amazing what that feels like. So I'm very grateful for all the influence and the guidance I've received from not only, you know, people like Clay, Jim Sweeney. You know what? They're unbelievable people. And without them, and not only them, all my mentors, I wouldn't even be here. You know, you got to have help along the way. No one can say they did it alone, for sure.
That's right. That's right, for sure. Man, what an incredible story. What an incredible podcast today. I've just enjoyed learning more about you, just from your childhood to your professional baseball career to the incredible career that you've had in the insurance business, and where we're going with the big blue machine. I feel like
big blue machine. I like that.
I've never heard of that, but it's kind of like a big band of brothers and sisters, and the opportunity for us just to really continue to grow and expand together is going to be a lot of fun, and that's one of the things I love about the partnership that we're creating. It's kind of like that childhood that you had of being with a bunch of family members, right, that are here to support each other, have fun, challenge, compete with, but continue to grow with. And so we're going to have a lot of fun together. I'm honored that you partnered with us, and really, really excited about just the overall opportunity. So thanks again for joining us today on
Brian.
the Inspire Podcast. Yes, sir.
Brian, can I mention one more thing that really inspired me? And I have to mention this because it really did. When I first started back in the day, my first week in the business, I had a field trainer, and he said, "I'll meet you here at 8:30 in the morning, and we're going to go on a few appointments." I met him at the office at 8:30 in the morning, and we driving toward Miami. And then he gets off at an exit and pulls into a Porsche dealership. I said, "What's going on here? You got business here?" He goes, "No." He goes, just come with me. And what he did was, we were in there for an hour and a half to 2 hours. He walked out with a 944 Porsche.
Wow.
My first day in the business with him. You thought that if that didn't inspire me, we got in there and went to Miami. That was one of the most inspiring times in my life. I'll never forget that either.
Wow.
So,
oh man. Well,
that's true.
You've got a lot to you've done a lot to inspire us today. I really appreciate everything you've done. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I know you've worked with American Senior Benefits for many, many years, and Jim and Clay are two of my favorite people, just two of the best in the business. And wanted to have them come on and just welcome you to the broader Integrity family as well. So Jim and Clay, are you guys there?
Brian, can you hear me? This is Clay.
What's up, Clay? How's it going, man? Hey, speaking of video, you look great in the video, man. Great job.
Oh, you're killing me. That was the most terrifying thing ever. But hey,
yeah, right.
Besides, I had to be around Frank for an extra 2 hours, and it was a nightmare. No, anyhow, I really appreciate you giving me a minute to speak about Frank and Terry. Brian, I understand why you get so excited on announcement day, because you continue to bring a who's who of the finest in our industry into the platform. It's absolutely unbelievable. I've known the DeJiulio family for 25 years. I've seen them take their business from good to better to best to great to greater. And now I see no reason why they can't put their entire organization on steroids with integrity and just go for it. And they're not people of a lot of words. They speak through actions. So really, enough said. These are people that the other partners on this call and the associates at Integrity, if we go to war, these are people you want on your side. So I can't give them a bigger compliment than that, and I'm sure Jim can mirror some of those thoughts as well. Thanks.
Yeah, hey, Brian, this is Jim. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you great, man.
Good. Hey, so I just wanted to say a couple of things. First of all, again, to echo what Clay said, to talk about the best of the best. And, when Clay and I were talking to you, Brian, about partnering with Integrity, over the last couple of years, and ultimately, decided to do so about a year and a half ago. We, part of the reason that we did that is we looked at some of the leaders that we had in our organization, and people like Frank, really Frank specifically, came to mind as guys that would we would love to be. We had worked with Frank, and Frank had been a part of our team for a long time, but technically we weren't all the way partners together, and to think about having a guy like Frank join our organization and join the Integrity family and actually be co-owners and really sort of more connected as a hip was just a great opportunity. And we were really excited about that opportunity for people like Frank. And I got to say, I just want to say one other thing. So the way American Senior Benefits works is Clay and I are running around like scalded monkeys. We got a bunch of people all over the country, and Frank lives there in Florida, and Clay lives in Florida. So Clay gets the pleasure and the privilege of working, really, really, really closely with Frank. And I've been jealous of Clay ever since, from the very beginning, when I first met Frank, and I thought, this is just all wrong, I can't. Anyway, but so Frank and I, over time have gotten to, know each other a lot better, and, behind Clay's back and stuff, we got to sneak around and stuff. But anyway, but seriously, there's no better person. And again, a man of few words is absolutely true. But when he talks, he's got a presence about him, and everybody is listening. And truly, I think one of the biggest advantages of partnering with Integrity is taking, some of the minutia, the business activities away that prevent Frank from doing what he does best, and that's recruiting people, training people, leading people, and helping people build their businesses. And so I'm super excited. Frank is as good as they come. I love you, Frank. I mean it. And we appreciate all that you've done for American Senior Benefits along the way. And it's going to be a great, great ride from here on out. So anyway, I'm excited for ASB. I'm excited for all the Integrity family to have a guy like Frank with us. So that's what I got.
Wow, Frank.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
I know. Can you believe it?
Well, yeah, I tell you what. Well, I'm getting blown up with text right now. I know that we could have a bunch more partners jump on, but in the interest of time, I just want to tell you again, thank you so much for joining us. Next Monday is Labor Day, and we will be taking a break from the podcast then. So I hope everybody has an incredible time with your family. And the Inspire podcast will return on Monday, September 14th, when we'll all hear some additional great stories from other Integrity partners. Frank DeJiulio, I love you, man. Really appreciate your partnership and your story, and congratulations on all the success you've had. And we're just getting started, my friend. Let's go and make something even more memorable and keep building on this story.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that.
Hey, buddy. Congratulations. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. I hope everybody has a blessed week. God bless you guys.
Take care. Same here.